slow, stable, predictable, yeah.
Morning on our first meeting of our Joint Select Committee to discover, discuss, and to arrive at the way forward for the sex harassment bill. We ask that the deliberation be done decently and in order and in a robust manner so that whatever we decide on we'll be able to achieve. In your name we say thanks. Amen.
Thank you. For the record, I will name the members of the... We do apologies first? All right, apologies for absence. All right, we have apologies for absence from Anne-Marie Vaz, Delroy Chuck, who is overseas, and Donna Scott Motley, who is also overseas. And for the record, I will name the members of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the bill shortly entitled the Sexual Harassment Act 2019. The members are Honorable Delroy Chuck, Mr. Franklin Whittle, Mrs. Marissa Dalrymple Filbert, Mrs. Anne-Marie Vaz, Ms. Natalie Neto, Mr. Horace Daly, Dr. Angela Brown Burke, Senator Calvin Gale, Senator Dr. Sophia Longmore, Senator Carencia Morrison, Senator Donna Scott Motley, and Senator Sophia Fraser Binns. And I want to welcome Senator Gale and Senator Binns at this time, and I would assume that the other members, some of the other members are on their way. So, colleagues, we are here today to do a great service to our country. We have been asked to serve as members of this committee. Welcome, Dr. Sophia Longmore. Great. Okay. So, we are here to do a great service to our country. We have been asked to serve as members of this committee to effectively deal a blow to this very important and far-reaching societal issue. For a long time, the vulnerable have suffered the most harmful effects of sexual harassment, particularly at the workplace, in learning institutions, in hospitals, in nursing homes, correctional centers. In fact, some women and men are sexually harassed even while walking the streets. And you notice I said some women and men. Sexual harassment is not a simple matter. It militates against a desired level of peace, harmony, and happiness in our country. It is a serious crime that we are called to deal with. The UN Women, in their article titled Towards an End to Sexual Harassment, the urgency and nature of change in the era of #MeToo, defines sexual harassment as a, and I quote, human rights violation of gender-based discrimination, regardless of sex, in a context of unequal power relations such as a workplace and or gender hierarchy. Its effects are felt particularly by the most vulnerable in society, our women and our girls. Through our work in this committee, we can protect all women and men from unwanted sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and crude sexual behaviors that affect quality of life by creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. On Tuesday, I said in the House that we may disagree on many things in this House, but I know we all, on both sides, want to eliminate violence against women and our girls and our boys. This is another opportunity for us to protect victims while dealing appropriately with perpetrators. Welcome, Mr. Whittle. Today, let us send a signal to those who sexually harass women and men in employment, in institutions, or in landlord-tenant relationships that their days of getting away with it has come to an end. So the bill we will examine presents under the following headings. Part 1, preliminary. Part 2, prevention of sexual harassment. Part 3, forms of sexual harassment and related prohibited conduct. Part 4, designation of authorized officer. Part 5, sexual harassment tribunal. Part 6, procedure for making complaints, investigations, and hearing by tribunal. Part 7, offenses and penalties. And Part 8, miscellaneous. We are tasked with the responsibility of reviewing this bill, and it is my hope that we will pool our collective wisdom in a timely manner to give the people of Jamaica the necessary legislative protection. We have a job to do, and I hope we will do that job expeditiously. And I want to especially welcome the technical team who is here with us this morning. So now we're going to discuss procedural matters. I understand that we have until 11 a.m. to conclude our discussions this morning, so we will have a fairly short meeting. We will focus on quorum, the way forward in relation to dates of subsequent meetings, how we will treat with submissions and hearings. So I am suggesting that in looking at a quorum, we could decide that a quorum could be 2 plus 1, and I'm putting this out to members to indicate how they would respond to that, because it's important that we do not have delay or meetings being delayed because circumstances, members may not be able to turn up in full force. So the quorum could be 2 or 3. 2 plus the chair, or 3 plus the chair. Yes, Senator Gale?
Well, Chair, morning everyone. Well, we did in fact start with 2 plus the chair this morning, so if that is a way forward in terms of establishing a quorum, then I would be in agreement with it and hope that for the purposes of the objectives of this particular committee, that members, albeit not balanced in gender, noting the composition of the committee, we hope that members would in fact turn out to support the objectives of a very important piece of legislation.
Thank you, Senator Gale. It is extremely important that members commit themselves to turning out to the meetings. So, agreed? Quorum? Yes, Mr. Whittle?
Right. So, Madam Chair, I think though that given the fact that it is a joint select and you would want to have at each meeting members from the lower and upper house, I would prefer to have 3 plus the chair. I might just end up with 2 senators, nobody from the upper house and from the lower house, and vice versa. So I think, to have 3 plus 1 would be more desirable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Whittle. Senator Longmore?
I'm also in agreement. I just wondered also in terms of the requirement, if there's a minimum requirement based on the numbers that have been indicated to be sitting on the committee. Do we have a minimum that we need to or we can decide?
We don't have a minimum in relation to quorum, but we have a minimum for signatures for the report. We have a minimum for understand there is a minimum for quorum, but we can set it otherwise. Right?
I'm inclined to find favor with Member Whittle. Given the nature of what we're doing and the importance of it, I believe. And I know that we perhaps will get 3 plus a chair. Perhaps it might be 3 from the Senate. What if we have 3 plus a chair? Yes. So I would go with 3 plus a chair.
Senator Gale, you have any further comment?
No, I'm in agreement. I've been overruled, so no.
Get used to it.
Well, what I will say then, I'm depending on the members who are present here to ensure that they communicate with each other, so at least 3 members are present at every meeting. It would be most unfortunate if we run into difficulties. So I'm depending on those who are now present to ensure they always know that there are at least 3 members turning up.
One thing I can tell you, Minister, with the practice of these committees, the senators seems to outnumber other members and turn up for committee meetings. We had the BOJ sitting, and it was senators and past senators who had turned out for that sitting. So the senators I know is a committed group to turn up for these proceedings.
I can speak for Frank, though. Frank and I.
Well, I certainly have to agree this morning, but considering that MP Witter increased the numbers for the quorum, MP Witter will make sure that members of Parliament who are members of this committee turn up for meetings. That's his, and especially as the Deputy Speaker of the House. Right. So I know we can depend on him. Right. Thank you. So we agree 3 plus the chair will make a quorum. Now, dates of subsequent meetings. We're near the end of the year. We're moving into Christmas. It might be a little difficult to convene another meeting prior to the end of the year. So I would like to suggest that we consider convening our next meeting early in January. And the notice will be sent out on the date. We don't have to determine the exact date. But we should meet in January. In the meantime, we could place 2 ads between now and the end of the year, inviting submissions and asking persons to indicate their interest in attending the meeting and making presentations. We should compile a comprehensive list of stakeholders to invite to this meeting. I'm going to invite Mrs. Robinson to indicate some of those, and other members could indicate, and we will also ask the Secretariat here to assist us in compiling a comprehensive list of stakeholders who would be invited, in addition to placing the notice in the... Now, with social media, I think it should not just be in print. And I know that's usually there's a little hesitancy with Parliament, but we should do something in social media as well to invite submissions and not just do an ad in the newspaper.
I would love to underscore that. I think that especially with the nature of what we're dealing with, we need to put as much feelers and as much opportunities out there for the regular man or woman to contribute, and especially amongst our youth. we need to sensitize them, not just about the contribution, but also to make them aware of what changes we hope to institute.
Chair,
Mr. Gale?
we have evolved in terms of our reach. And even in our standing orders, we are evolving where we are suggesting that we communicate by other means rather than the traditional way. And it is also part of our sensitization with particular reference to this particular issue, because many of the persons who we want to reach, we are going to reach them through social media as part of the education platform. So I'm suggesting that, and I'm in total agreement with using that medium for the start. And we can identify the feedback from that in terms of the response. So I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Mrs. Robinson?
Thank you, Minister. So there are several groups that have indicated interest in putting forward a submission, because this topic of sexual harassment, as you are well aware, is very topical, and it's something that so many persons have weighed in on earlier and certainly would want to be a part of the debate, seeing that we have a bill that is very comprehensive and that sort of broadly reaches as many groups as we can, even though there has been conversation about other aspects like stalking and voyeurism, which are not captured in here, that person would want to make submissions on. So I do have a short list, which can be increased as we progress, because persons will express interest later on. So I have UE, Mona. They do have a sexual harassment workplace policy. And just Monday, they had a press conference, and at the press conference, they indicated their interest in weighing in. And so I invited them on behalf of the minister to prepare a submission. So their submission, I think, should have started. There's Jamaicans for Justice, Woman Inc., that's Woman Incorporated Limited, it's Woman Inc. for short. ROC, that's the Women's Resource and Outreach Center. Women's Media Watch, WMW. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Am I going too fast? The Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Rent Assessment Board, because there is a landlord-tenant situation which is treated here in the bill, and so we want to have a submission from that body. The Confederation of Trade Unions, certainly, because the trade union is very huge on this, and they will decide out of their group, their list, which of the groups would represent. And certainly we'd want the Jamaica Household Workers Union. Recently, they have signed on to C190, Convention 190. Our Prime Minister was there in Geneva when it was signed on to. They want to have protection in their space because of their increased vulnerability to sexual harassment as household workers. And the bill treats with them as well. And then, so that's 11 I have, and 12 is others as deemed appropriate or as expressed interest as we progress. Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes, Senator Gale?
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Benz.
I just want to add to the list, because I've ticked off some that you've mentioned, but I did not hear the JEF. Did you mention, Jeff was mentioned? Oh, it wasn't. So JEF, Employers Federation, I believe that the political parties would be important to hear their views. And there's a party that I'm a member of that I know has a policy. So it'd be interesting to hear what they have to say, as well as the other party. And the Norman Manley Law School, I think we could also get an input from them as well.
I would add to that, Senator Binns, that the political parties and their various arms,
Yes.
such as their youth and women's,
yes. Right.
should
And
invite them.
if I may, Chairman, before you go, the Student Council, there's a national body, but that national body I think would be important as well. Thanks.
Senator Longmore, you wanted to?
I'm just trying to figure out in all of those agencies, security guards. Is there any voice for them? Or any security guards? Is there any way that, or that group, that could be facilitated somehow?
So unfortunately,
Security personnel, security guards, as in
Senator Gale, you want to respond?
Unfortunately, it has been difficult to organize that wide grouping. But I can see, Chair, their representation coming through the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions. I am glad where Senator Binns made reference to the Jamaica Employers Federation. And maybe we want to consider, because based on experience in time, the private sector organization of Jamaica also, they tend to have a different opinion at times than that of the Jamaica Employers Federation. And because of how far-reaching this piece of legislation has gone, where there was a time when it was just confined to the workplace, but based on recent incidents, the extension of into schools. So I'm glad when you made reference, Senator Binns, about the student council. And we should invite as one of the key ministries, the Ministry of Education, in this.
Yes, definitely. You may want to also mention, Minister may also want to add the police, that special arm of the police, Sissoko. You may want to invite Sissoko, sorry.
Well, any other recommendations you have, would you please convey them to Ms. Bailey? Or, yes, because I think we have to reach far and wide. Because you don't want, after we have gone through all our discussions, and you have people out there saying, well, we didn't know this, we didn't know that, and it becomes, because this is a very sensitive bill. And it is going to impact on some of the things we take for granted, and just cultural norms. It's far-reaching, and it is important that we even get to the grassroots, so they understand what this bill is about. Yes, Senator Longman.
Just as you mentioned about the culture and such, anything around the music industry?
Yeah, we should add them. There is Jaria.
Yeah.
Jamaica reggae.
And entertainment generally,
Right.
but the music industry
We can
primarily.
invite the Jamaica Federation of Musicians, the Jamaica Vintage Artists Association, and the churches. The churches. And we should ensure that we have a wide reach geographically as well. You know, it's not just persons who are based in Kingston and organizations that function out of Kingston, but we should reach far and wide. And persons would be invited to make written submissions in addition to come in and making presentations to the committee. No, I don't know if there's any other matter that members would want to raise that we should look at. All right, in putting our public notice together, we're going to have to determine how long we will give the public like a deadline to make their submissions.
So I was thinking, Chair, so we make the notice and give like a 2-week period for response. And then depending, because it's 2 notices we want to send. And then we give a break in between the deadline of the first one to send another notice and apply it the same way. So there's equal opportunity between periods in terms of seeking a response. So that would make it a month in between. Now the interesting thing is at the time of the year when we're normally distracted, whether it's feasible to give the notices no,
It's going to get lost in
and it might get
holiday,
lost. The,
New Year's.
the other thing I'd want to suggest is also, whilst the notices have gone out, there is some sort of a promo around the notices to galvanize attention towards the need to make submissions and what this is all about. So that would be part of the sensitization that would support the whole objective of us being here and getting these groups on board. And then, again, the final point I want to make, whilst we have identified some key stakeholders, we have to reinforce the need for and remind some of them of the need to make submissions. Because, they, as I say, they're going to take it, some of them might take it for granted and also get lost in the festivities. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we're going to have to do that. So maybe we should look at doing just one ad, maybe the second week in December. Because can we yes, right? And we start our promo immediately. We start sensitizing the public that the hearings will begin, and we could consider beginning the hearings maybe the second week in January. So it means that we would set a deadline. Let's look at some dates here. Our deadline could be no, I understand that in January, the date that is available for the next meeting is the 15th. Where? After the 15th is not available? No, there's a meeting. Okay, so it would be the 16th onwards for our next meeting.
So, Chair, you'll have to take into consideration notice and time to make, adequate time to make submissions.
And also take into consideration the persons preparing to make that submission will be in the holiday frame of mind. So I don't know if it's a good time to the level of submissions that we would hope to have. I don't think we should be rushing that process.
So let us look at let us look at the week of the 26th. That's the last week of January for our meeting. While we advertise and promote and receive submissions. And we would meet sometime during that week. So it gives us 3 full weeks in January to mobilize, to promote, to receive submissions. Or you think we need to do it a little earlier, a little sooner?
Not earlier.
That's fine.
Not earlier, Chair. That would give us sufficient time. But the other thing is that competing for space, parliamentary space, and days, and knowing that members of these committees are also members of other committees, are we going to agree on a particular day? And then we have to take into consideration the legal support team and how stretched they are. Yeah. Yeah, so we can take that slot.
Wednesday afternoon?
I understand that a Wednesday and a Thursday we could consider. For a Wednesday it would have to be in the afternoon. On a Wednesday afternoon. On a Thursday it would have to be in the morning. So if we go with a Wednesday afternoon,
Thursday, as ministers, most MPs go into their constituency. So I think Wednesday afternoon perhaps will be better. I mean, he left here last night after 6 went down and he's back this morning.
Wednesday afternoon is good for you, MP Witter? All right, so we're going to the 29th of January at 2. That would be our next meeting. So we now have work to do between now and that date.
Chair, could I just ask, could it be at 1 so that we may end a little bit earlier considering traffic and everybody,
Can be at 1.
Yeah.
Deputy Speaker, if it's at 1, Parliament should provide lunch for members. Now, you know that PAAC meets on a Wednesday, and sometimes they go a little over their time. But so we would have to seek their cooperation that there is a meeting at 1 and they will have to respect time. So we're going to have to, MP Witter, that I'm going to leave that in your hands, right? So we meet at 1 on a Wednesday, starting January 29. All right, 1 p.m. Right, now we will, if I'm permitted, can I work out with Parliament, with the Secretariat, the schedule for the ads? I know we'll do one before Christmas. We'll do one around the 8th in print. But I think we have to spend some time to work out a social media campaign. Huh? That would be the ministry. Okay, well, we will work on the social media campaign through the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport.
If I may also suggest you could use the print one to initially stir the social media interest. You could just use whatever there and put it out on platforms until you get the other social media. So, so you kind of sensitize for the upcoming.
We will use all social media platforms that are available. And of course the GIS facilities, right? So we have settled on dates and we have settled on the way forward. We will make every effort to. How frequently I would like to get members' response to the frequency of meetings. If we have an agreement, to meet, because we have to move on this piece of legislation. If we have an agreement, we can meet every week. We don't have to have long meetings, right? We can schedule our meetings and have them regularly and efficiently.
I agree. The hardest work in the meetings is going to be the stakeholders' response on how we treat with that, and taking the report out of that to form a document, so that when we are working through clause by clause, we can determine how we go forward. But I don't have a difficulty, since it's a Wednesday afternoon, and Minister, we know that you will exhaust us in the time that we have.
Crack the whip.
I will make sure instead of that sweet sugary drink, we get some Lucozade or something.
All right. The person who services the PAAC is also the person who is doing this committee. But I was just saying to her assistant here, or deputy.
No, I'm the committee coordinator.
Oh, the committee coordinator. That is something that we have to work out with Parliament, right? Because the business has to go on, right? So we'll have to work it out. Yeah, I think so. Those are little things, MP, with that as Deputy Speaker, you can assist us to iron out those things. But we have to get the job done. Got to do what we got to do. Right? All right, so I think at this point, we're just 3 minutes past 11 and we were to end at 11. We're doing very well at this point. Any other business?
Chairman, may I just note?
I'm sorry, Minister, what was the final thing in terms of the frequency of the meetings?
Weekly. Yes, we really have to get the job done. If for any reason we cannot meet on a particular week, notice will be given. We can, right? But we won't have long meetings, but we will have frequent meetings. And we're going to have to, we cannot just confine our work to when we meet at committee. We're going to have to make sure that we network so that the interest is sustained and our stakeholders will make themselves present so we can have robust discussions. At some point, we will also consider having a retreat. And we can determine the date of the retreat and all of that. But I don't think this piece of legislation should just languish and take forever to complete it for a decision to be taken and for us to get to the point of implementation. I really want to thank members for coming. I look forward to the successful outcome of our deliberations, and that in a short time we will have protection for our men and our women, our boys and our girls against sexual harassment. If there is no other comment, or would it,
Chairman,
Senator?
I just want to record the apology of MP Nita. She sends her apologies for her absence today.
Now I understand the chairman for the other committees here, and we're just about to finish our business. I want to thank members for attending and the technical team for being here, and I look forward to very successful discussions and outcome regarding the Sexual Harassment Act 2019. Thank you very much.
So why I'm sitting down by himself, sir? I don't understand.
What's wrong with him?
I'm me. This is who I am. Can't you see me?
So why I'm sitting down by himself, sir? I don't understand.